Today on Locked on Blue Jackets, we're talking about three more key Blue Jackets prospects that maybe did not have the seasons that a lot of people were hoping for. Will Scouch is back on today's Locked on Blue Jackets.
You're Locked on Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked on Blue Jackets, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly about your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get things started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day every single day. Locked on Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms and over on YouTube. We are continuing a conversation that we started on Friday with Will Scouch of Scouching about some key Blue Jackets prospects. We talked about the three Lucas, Del Barbaluz, Pinelli, and Morelli. And now we're going to talk about a couple of other players. So today we're going to talk about Gavin Brindley, who I don't think had the season that many people were expecting him to with the AHL team. We're going to talk about Cayden Lindstrom, who obviously just made his triumphant return from injury. And we're also going to talk about William Whitelaw, who is going to be playing for a third NCAA team in 3 years. So I'm just going to get into my conversation with Scouch. I have some other players that I want to talk about, but just kind of following that thought about top four defensemen. The Blue Jackets have, I think that they're, for the most part anyway, set with their left top four defensemen. They've got Zach Werenski and they've got Denton Matejchuk. That feels like a 1-2 punch down the left that is extremely good. The problem is the right side. They've got, in theory, if they re-sign him, they've got Dante Fabro to play with Werenski. That was a very good pairing in the regular season. They need to find a partner for Denton Matejchuk. Does he exist in the prospect pool yet, do you think? Or is that a guy that they are going to have to, again, go out and get, again, I see people saying, go get Bo Byram from Buffalo. I would like them to go get Owen Power from Buffalo if you can pry him away. Brent Clark, I think, plays on the left side, but he is ostensibly available.
Right.
Can they fill it in-house, or do they have to hire externally, I guess is my question.
I mean, I'm poking around looking at the guys that are in the system here. I mean, a guy who I was curious about last year, and I wondered who was going to take a flyer on him. And I don't think that he's destined for second pair right-hand shot defenseman, but a guy that I think could offset a Denton Matejchuk pretty well down the road would be like a Tanner Henricks. He's already in the system. He was in the USHL this year on a team that was one of the best in the USHL. I think they're in the Clark Cup Championships right now, Lincoln. And he's a guy who is very big. I think he's a very good skater and very rangy. I think that the offensive numbers that he had last year and even this year kind of undersell what he brings and the value that I think might be there in the future. But obviously, you're talking Denton Matejchuk, who is 21 now, 22, 21?
Not even, I don't think.
Yeah, he's 20. So if you're talking Tanner Henricks, you're talking maybe he'll be a partner for a Denton Matejchuk when Matejchuk's 24, right? So what are you gonna do between now and then? So I think you do need a more immediate solution, right? This is a team you're trying to get into the playoffs, and I don't think there's anybody that's a natural right-hand shot that I think fits that mold. I'd be very curious about a guy like Samuel Knazko, who has been floating around with Cleveland for a few years now. He's been with the World Championship team in Slovakia a couple of years. I've always been a fan of him, but he's a left-hand shot, but a little bit on the safer side, more mobile, defensive-leaning guy rather than being more of this offensive guy. Like for me, I'm thinking Denton Matejchuk needs a guy who supports him and covers for him, and Matejchuk's kind of at his best with a bit of freedom, a bit of liberal ability in the offensive zone, stepping up and creating offense for the team. But that requires a bit of a supporting cast around it to make it work. And I'm not sure there's anybody that right away suits that mold. I don't think that the answer to that is Owen Power, if that's a guy that's even available. I mean, a good, supportive, right-hand shot defenseman is not an easy thing to find, I don't think, out there in the NHL these days. So I don't know the answer to this question, really. I don't see it as a clear-cut internal solution right now with someone that I definitely could see playing on a pair with Matejchuk. But of everybody, the one who I think maybe lines up the best with that kind of offsetting ability would be Tanner Henricks, but I don't think that's any time in the near future.
Sure. Yeah, this is not a quick fix. Just I was thinking about in terms of like, well, hopefully they find someone for him to play with for the next 10
Right.
years, right?
Yeah.
And we'll see, I guess.
Well, the good thing about Columbus is this is, again, the benefit of drafting so much. This is the benefit of having a good team of people drafting good players and having a lot of picks and a lot of capital. And you're in this position, look at what Carolina has done, right? Carolina has been a team that's drafted well for a decade almost. And they've constantly, you look at their team, and it's not necessarily filled with the guys they draft, but it's filled with guys that they've acquired by trading a lot of these younger players, and they've brought in a lot, and they still have a pretty good group of players that aren't in the NHL yet. So if you look at the Columbus Blue Jackets and you go, well, look at all these names on the Cleveland Monsters, where if they become NHL players, that's awesome, right? Like they could be awesome. But if there's a team out there that has a right-hand shot defenseman and they're kind of looking to get younger, they're looking to sort of sell off some assets, and you could step in and be like, well, we have all of these players available that we've drafted and we just don't really know what to do with them because we're so set in our whatever here, then maybe there's a market there. And I don't know what that name would be, but you at least have the flexibility to offer a good chunk of talent to fill that need. Because I think there are a lot of NHL teams that are always looking for top 4 right-hand shot defensemen that can defend and work with more offensive leaning defensemen.
Yeah, there are more jobs than there are players to fill that role. I feel like every year, every team is like, you know what we need? Another right defenseman.
Exactly.
And there are only so many of them. So.
I'm a right-hand shot defenseman. I mean, my phone's always on,
I'll get Don on the phone.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the Monsters. And I want to talk about Gavin Brindley, who we know on this show. I love Gavin Brindley. This podcast is a Gavin Brindley safe zone. I know that you're a big fan.
Yep.
Did not put up the points that I think a lot of people were expecting in his first year in Cleveland. Now, I'm not worried, but for listeners that are worried, what can you say to kind of reassure people that Gavin Brindley is gonna be fine?
Well,
it's gonna be okay.
Number one, a scoring forward who broke their hand and missed a big chunk of the season, that sucks. So there's that. 2, he's a pro hockey rookie who is 5'9", and there might be an adjustment period there. I think that's okay to understand and be okay with. He also started really hot with them. Like, I watched the first couple games he played coming back from injury, and he looked pretty darn good. So I'm not exactly sure what happened beyond that point, but I watched those games and I'm going, this guy has not forgotten how to play hockey in the slightest. The other thing I would say, and I tell this to everybody who's like, when is it time to worry about a player? It's like, it's not a benefit to you to worry in the first place. Like, the guy is really talented. Like, Brindley, you don't go from playing for the University of Michigan at 19 years of age and putting up those kinds of numbers without Adam Fantilli to what people are worried about he is now, especially with a broken hand injury in the middle. Like, that just doesn't make sense to me. So for me, I go, you're not doing him any favors by being pessimistic. It's like, the only option you have is to really look at the video from the games he's played this year, trust that he's going to put in the work to shore up whatever injuries or problems or whatever there might be, train, have a good summer, get stronger, stay that style of play that he is, Gavin Brindley, that dynamic, offensive, high pace, high energy guy, and come back ready to compete for a job. Like, again, I'm looking at their depth chart right now, and there are jobs open for Columbus next year, right? On the wing. I don't think Brindley's a center.
Adam Fantilli needs a winger, in fact.
Adam Fantilli needs a winger, and he's been a winger for Adam Fantilli in the past. Like, I don't know, but I think that there is plenty of runway. He's only 20, and I don't think there's any need to feel obligated that a guy, whether or not they score a bunch of points or not, is on a specific schedule to just be in the NHL, right? To me, the only thing that matters is like when they become waiver eligible. Between now and then, whatever happens in between, if your NHL team is good, then great, right? That's what matters. So, but if you lose a guy like Gavin Brindley on waivers because you still can't find a job for him and he's too old to just go back to the minors, then you kind of go, okay, we kind of really have to figure out what we're doing with this guy and what we want to do with him. But I'm not worried at all. I watch him play. I've seen him play since he was 16 with Tri-City. Like, he's been around for a while, and I am not super concerned. And I saw him when he first came back from injury, and I thought he looked fantastic. So I don't know what happened in terms of the production drying up, but yeah, no, I'm not super concerned. And I think a good summer of training and coming back healthy and, getting stabilized again, I think would do him quite well.
Sure. In a minute, we're going to talk a little bit about Cayden Lindstrom, but first I'm going to tell you all about Monarch Money. Do you ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track, and that's where Monarch Money comes in. They are your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances, and it's not just a budgeting app, it is a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you can stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on, the little treat economy. Now I budget smarter, I save more. I do unfortunately get fewer little treats, but my bank account is much, much happier. And instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. You don't have to do what I used to do, which is open my banking app and then open a budgeting app and then open a spreadsheet and then go back to my banking app. You can do it all in one place, which is so good. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for 50% off your first year. I guess to kind of follow on from that thought, like, again, I don't know how much Brindley tape you've watched this year, but like, is he still trying to create? He's still playing his game, and the puck's just not going in, or is it a case of like he's having trouble adapting to the system, or like, I don't know if you have.
I don't have anything detailed there on that. Like, I haven't watched him since the first few games he came back. Like, but he's shooting 7% this year.
So like, probably it's a little bit.
There's a little bit of that. I don't know who he was playing with in Cleveland.
Up and down.
So yeah, like the stability, injuries, low shooting percentage. Maybe there's a formula there where it's just he didn't have the best season on paper. But like, I also, one thing I do, and I probably shouldn't, but I sometimes lurk on subreddits and stuff of people discussing what they've seen in a guy. And, when I look up Gavin Brindley and what people are talking about with, the community is talking about him, it's not that he's bad all of a sudden, right? He's adjusting to the speed of a professional game, the physicality of a professional game. He's probably learning how to manage his limitations a little bit better regarding his size. Like, he was a very heavy possession guy going out of college. Now he might need to be a more quick thinking, off puck focused guy, and that might be an adjustment. And he's kind of snake bitten, and he's moving around the lineup, and nothing's really stable for him. So who knows? So again, like, if I'm a development coach, I am still really positive on him, and it's just a matter of like, let's reset, let's find something that makes sense, and let's have a good summer and come back ready to go in camp. And I mean, he just plays a style of play that I can't ignore and can't just say, maybe it just won't work. I've loved him for so long that I'm disappointed at how the season went on paper, but I still came away whenever I watched him going, yeah, this is still a pretty darn good player, and we'll see what happens from here.
Yeah. Feels like he's going to have as good a chance as anyone to fill that again, like I said, Blue Jackets have holes up and down the lineup right now. It feels like he's got as good a shot as anyone to fill one of those holes. Speaking of players that have missed time due to injury, Cayden Lindstrom recently returned to play, which is great news, and has 4 points in 3 playoff games against the Spokane something or others.
The Spokane Chiefs.
There we go.
Yeah, it's okay.
I literally just talked about this with somebody else. I should know this, and yet I don't. This is good news, obviously. I know that we talked a little bit off mic that you said you haven't really had a chance to watch Lindstrom since he came back from his injury, right. But I know that you and I have also talked about the same thing that you said with Brindley. Do not worry. He is 19 years old. Yes. Everything will probably be fine. I guess, can you just kind of speak on that a little bit more? Because I feel like Lindstrom's injury, obviously back injuries, people get skittish.
Yeah.
People get skittish because Demidov obviously had a fairly good start to his NHL career, and now everyone is losing their minds that the Blue Jackets should have drafted Demidov, and yes, probably they should have drafted Demidov. However, can you just speak on Lindstrom a little bit more and kind of what we should expect from him?
Well, number one, again, it's playing 39 games in 2 seasons. I mean, he's going to play more, but 40-ish games in 2 years is not awesome. That's just that's tough when the potential amount of games he could have played is up in the 130 in the last 2 seasons, right? He's missed a lot of time. But again, what's the point in being, self-flagellating, right? He's still a very talented player. He's a player who has all the tools in the world to be a pretty impactful NHL player. Again, you just said it, right? Demidov, for me, would have been the guy. I feel like that is not a controversial idea. I think Demidov, with guys like Marchenko, Voronkov, Provorov, all on the roster already, it was a bit of a natural sort of fit. I don't know if there was something with Demidov where he's like, I don't really want to go to Columbus, so don't bother picking me and go somewhere else. I don't know. But in any case, it is Cayden Lindstrom. That's the guy who you've got. And I can see the argument for a guy like Lindstrom over a guy like Demidov. And I think we saw some of the maybe gaps that are still there in Demidov's game when he did play with the Habs. He's had some incredible moments, but there are some gaps in his game. Not saying there aren't for Lindstrom, but Lindstrom has all of the physical tools to, if he's not a top 6 guy, maybe be a third line center and a good one, right? And maybe you could put Sillinger on a wing. He's got size. He's really rangy. He's physical, but also he's got a bit of skill to his game that really benefits him as well. This is a guy who I think, the finer details and moving the puck and just working within the confines of a system last year was a bit of what I had an issue with him. He was very sort of, again, give me the puck. I'll fend off all the pressure. I'll cut into the middle. I'll try to do everything myself. And it just wasn't always great. But now you see him, hopefully playing a little bit more of a balanced game. But again, he has all of the abilities and tools to play down your lineup. As far as I know as well, the injury was not as bad as they thought it ended up being when they drafted him. I think they thought he was going to play this season, and then things just kind of didn't work out or things got worse, and here we are. But at the end of the day, again, you have him, right? He's only 19. What's the benefit in jumping off the wagon and going, oh my God, Ivan Demidov on this team would be so much better? It's maybe that's true today. Right. But I look at Lindstrom and go, injuries, back injuries are not fun. But what if it works out? What if he works out? What if he becomes a really good middle 6 forward, whether he's a center or a winger, playing a really good physical role? Again, look at the playoffs in the NHL, right? So many times in the playoffs, it's the skill guys who kind of have trouble adjusting and producing and really stepping up. And a lot of the time, it's the greasy nonsense that just ends up in the net. And a guy like Lindstrom has all the skill and all the ability to do the first thing, which is play with some skill and some flash and razzle dazzle and finish, but also fall back on his physical tools and the physicality of his game and the 200-foot sort of impact that I think he could have one day. So I know he's going to college next season, I believe. And so there's going to be not confirmed. I think there's a lot of talk that he's going to college. I think that's a place that he should go. And then you go from there. Play the long game. That's the thing that I think teams are going to do a lot more of now with the NCAA thing, where guys are going to have a longer runway. They won't have to go straight to the AHL so quickly, and you can sort of take guys along slower. And I think Lindstrom is one of those guys where normally he would be in the AHL next season, but it's nice that he has this stepping stone in the middle where he can sort of play fewer games, number one, and train more, right? Spend more time in the weight room, more time training, working on keeping his body healthy, and still playing a solid amount of games where, there's plenty of success from college players in the NHL. So if that's the path for him, I think it makes a lot of sense. And then see where it goes from there. But patience matters,
I think the Blue Jackets can probably can afford to be a little bit patient with him.
Yeah, 100%.
When you look at, again, the Sean Monahan signing was shockingly good. Turned out very good, turned out shockingly well for the Blue Jackets this year. And I think that has extended the timelines of players like Lindstrom, where, there is not, if they didn't have Monahan, let's say, probably there is a push to get him into the NHL, maybe next season, maybe the season after that. Now they've got Monahan for the next 5 years. He's shown that he's still capable of being a top-line center.
Mm-hmm.
Lindstrom's got a little bit more space too, like you say. Do a couple of years at college, go from there, which is, sometimes players take more development time, and that doesn't make them better or worse players than.
Well, the last thing you want is to rush him to the NHL or to rush him to the AHL, where someone knows that he's a guy that, hey, if I want to earn a paycheck this week, I could take a run at this kid. I could some 38-year-old guy who's on the way out. The last thing you want is another injury. Not saying that doesn't happen in college hockey, but it is a much more, I think, safer environment for him to just sort of have a full season, get back into the swing of things, get back into a routine, because he has missed a lot of time. That's a long time to not be playing hockey. So the slower for me, and let him sort of beat the benchmark, right? Like if you're going, yep, we're going to send you to college. We want to see how a season goes. And if he blows the NCAA out of the water next year, then fantastic, But if my expectation is a year to sort of get back on track, he has a good season, maybe he goes back for another year and he then takes a step, and then you can go from there. That wouldn't surprise me at all. And that would be, I think, perfectly acceptable. And I think, again, he plays the style of play that I think in the modern day NHL, you kind of do need. Would I have picked him at 4 at the time? Probably not, but you got him. And he does have all of these tools. It's not like he, again, similar to Brindley, it's not like he's forgotten how to play hockey. So you build on that, take your time. And I mean, look, worst case scenario, if there's a team out there who's like, hey, we'll give you a, Dougie Hamilton or whatever, and we want Cayden Lindstrom in return, you can look at that and go, well, we'll think about it. We can look at that option, right? He's a good option and you have some flexibility and you go from there.
Yeah, for sure. And that's all I've got for today. Tomorrow, we're going to come back with one last thing from my conversation with Will Scouch. We're going to talk about goalie prospects, which is always very exciting. And then we're going to take a look at what Will thinks that we should do in the NHL draft, what he expects us to do. Do you keep the picks? Do you trade them? What should the plan be? So we're going to talk about all of that tomorrow. Thank you for listening to this episode. My name is Jay Foster. I have been your host. You can find me on Twitter at _Jacob Foster, JAKOBFORSTER. You can find the show at LO_Blue Jackets. If you have comments, questions, criticism, you can email me at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. And until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.